information. Hello, everybody. I'm back. Mike with High Plains Design Studio. I gotta get back to programming again. So this sounds great. Let's see. So let me get back to what I was doing. So my last video I made, I was trying to install Bootstrap, but I was having some problems with. Turns out I was having some security problems because I was having some what's the words chmod problems. I can't even remember in human words what it means. There's no chmod, but directory settings with user settings, user setting problems, user security problems. I think that's the human term. Anyway, I had to fix that because it turns out when I had made the app originally, I made it in the users Gilbert app and the directory, the users Gilbert directory, and it has different user settings than I guess the desktop and the documents. So I just went ahead and remade the Angular. So if you remember how to do that, it's just ng new, and I made so I just recreated it, and then this time I went back in and I did. You'll see where I wrote it right here. npm install -- save bootstrap at 4.0.0 / beta.2 for the newest version. So I've installed it, and I'm gonna get back to what I was working on. So here it is. I'll go ahead. In the last video, I'd actually gotten the RPG game in there working. I'm gonna go ahead and recreate that again for a second time because it's not that big of a deal. It was just an iframe. So let me go ahead and get my text editor. Once again, I use Visual Studio Code. It's definitely a great download, free, made by Microsoft. Let's get back at it. Let me see. So what I've got going here is let me get rid of this welcome folder. Open a folder. I'm gonna open. I gotta go to my desktop, and I go to the RPG app, and it's the arcade, and that's the folder I'm gonna open. I do have it served already, so it is this game right here, this app. So now I've got it. So what I needed to do, if you remember, was when I go to the app folder, I'd go to the app component HTML. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of all this again, completely get rid of it. And then what I was gonna go ahead and do is put in an iframe, and the source was gonna be HTTP, and then my local account, local server, what was it called? It was called arcade.dev #project 1 / www / and I think that's it right there. And then I was gonna put in the frame, I went ahead and put ID equals, and we're gonna go ahead and put the game ID, and then what I went ahead and did was go to the app component CSS folder file and go ahead and add the CSS here for that particular, and it was game, those things. Yeah, I forget a lot of words, people, and I like in typing, and I'm not like, I forget these words, so so sometimes I'll just say things and what have you. But I think you'll get it. I think you'll understand. If you need anything, just send me straight in the comments. That's my phrase. That's my catchphrase. So what did we do? We did height. If you remember what the height was, what was the height? I don't remember the height. 612. I'm gonna have to look it. I'm gonna have to take a look. Plug in the core engine. 624 by 816. Okay, 624 by 816. 624 pixels with 816 pixels. Great. So now requested URL is not found. The link referring to this. Okay, so I must have the wrong page. Let's see if I got my. I must have written the wrong name down, or maybe it's got to be a capital. I don't remember. Let's take a look though. HT Docs, RPG Games. Oh, it's Project 3. No wonder why I put Project 1. So there's always mistakes, people. That's what programming is always about. Project 3. Typos, they call them typos, they call them whatever. Okay, so check it out. So now this is going. Damn, and I forgot, you know what it was? It's getting loud. That's pretty loud. But you hear it. Let's see if I can turn down the volume. Background music. So you can turn down the music. So I've turned down the music a little bit because that's pretty loud for me. It might not be too loud for the recording. But anyway, so I got that. I don't need to get rid of it. And let's go new game. And remember, if you remember, this was RPG. Yay, it works. Okay, now that we've got that going, what was next? I needed to probably iframe. I think I needed to go ahead and put it. Oh yeah, so I was putting in after I'd installed. Remember we ran and installed the npm install bootstrap. So now that I've done that, that worked this time. Now I can go to my package folder, package.json. You'll see that bootstrap sitting right here, nice and pretty. So there's the bootstrap. So let me see if I can remember. Watch me forget how to. I already forgot how to get it in. So I'm gonna make sure it's in here. Node. Bootstrap. There it is. Bootstrap, and there it is. So now, wow. Let's see if I can remember how to get bootstrap. I already forgot how I did it in my last app, so I'm gonna have to take a look. Let's see. Open recent, and I think I had done it. I think I did it in this one. So let me take a look if I remember. Let's see, I have bootstrap in here, but I completely forgot how I did it. Sometimes these things, you do it and then I forget how I do it. And so I remember doing it. Where did I do it? On the polyfills? No, I think I did it. Let's go to the app components, app module. And did I bring it in? Twitter service. This is header component. Trending, header, blah, blah, blah. Let me see. I don't think I did it in the index. I wonder if it is the polyfills that I did it. Because I don't think that was what it ended up being. Oh man, now I look silly. I forgot to take a look on how to add this. That's not Twitter service. Let me see. What else could it be? Could it be in the header? No, could be in the header. I doubt it's in the header. But I'll take a look. It could be header assets. No, sorry. Header components. I'm trying to remember if I did it. I think maybe it was the polyfills, but that was for the D3, so it wasn't that. I think it's just as simple as Twitter index. And I know I didn't do it here. Oh man, I forgot. I completely forgot. I feel like I imported it somewhere. And I'm just trying to remember where I imported it at. And I don't know if it was in the header. Let's see. Style, link service, Angular. So no, it had to have been in the module if I brought it in. No, trending. Those are other things. Wow, I completely forgot how to do this. That sucks. I think I'm gonna pause it and completely delete this video. This video's a waste. I'm not even ready. I forgot. forgot, and I bet you I'm just gonna go read my notes. I got my notes somewhere. I'll figure it out. Um, anyway, it's time. I'm gonna go take. I'm gonna get off here. I wonder if that worked. Did that work? Oh, I did it. Let's see if I can catch my last stream, because as soon as I stopped streaming, I found it. I remember now. It wasn't the polyfills. I was all silly. It's the styles. But yeah, at least I'll just keep this going. Oh my goodness, I've been up for a while now. Let's keep going though. So here we are. I need to import Bootstrap into this whole thing. So let's go back. I'm gonna grab this whole thing. Grab this, and that was all I needed to do actually. After I did that, I knew it was one thing, one last little thing to do. Arcade. So I'm in my arcade app over here. So I done my npm install Bootstrap, got the Bootstrap. Bam, bam, bam. Let's go down to, I don't need this node modules, I'll just make sure that it was open. So I go to my styles.css, and you can add global styles to this file, and you import, you do @import, and then I put it this little wiggly line, bootstrap slash this slash css slash bootstraps.css, and so forth. And now that we got that, now I should be able to just go to test it out. Let's go ahead and test it out by going back to the, after this, I'll just throw in a button. My favorite ones are always buttons. Buttons are usually real easy to button. And we'll throw in class equals, and we'll call it btn button primary, and that's Bootstrap. Actually, I don't think I need, I think it's button primary. I don't know what I'm thinking. Bam! CSS from Bootstrap in Angular. Couldn't remember, but now I remember. It was a quick little, oh my goodness. Alright, so what comes next? I don't even have a little checkbook. I did not prepare. I don't have my list this time. I'm just trying this out to see how it works. But let's keep going. The next thing would obviously be, now that I've got that going, let me get out of here. Let me go ahead and delete this button. But let me also get out of this so it doesn't run. So I'm going to delete that, so now I know that that's working. And I think I could do ID. How do I do this? I should be able to do class. Let's go to class and content center. I don't know what the let's see. Let's go to documentation. I'm in checking out the Bootstrap documentation. I forget a lot of these layouts, so like I said, I got a lot of things going on. There's all different freaking languages to learn and know whenever you're doing this stuff. So what am I doing? Justify center. There you go. I'm looking for utilities, justify content. Justify content center. That's what I think I'm trying to put in. Justify content center. I was a word off. So now let's take a look. It still didn't do it. How did we do this? So now I gotta center it. Damn it. Now I gotta be a stylist, everybody. So this is how it all ends up being. So let's go JavaScript now to styling in HTML and CSS, some bootstraps. But that's not even what I'm trying to do actually. What I'm trying to do, because I am going to have on the left hand side, so I think I need to make a row. So let's go ahead and make a div, and we'll go class equals row, because we're going to need a row. And let's put that div, and we'll get rid of that. We'll do that. We'll put this inside of that div, and I am free flowing right now. So row, I think I also, before I even need a row, before I even need that, when you think about it, I need a div and I need a class, and you actually need a container. Now that I think about it, when you talk with Bootstrap, so let's do that. Bam, X, throw that in there. So now, ooh, we got all this stuff. Doesn't need to be that far. Let's go, bam, and this one also there. That looks prettier. So now we got a little content. Let's give it. See right there, we got it in the container, and the container. Let's do a fluid container. I think would look nicer for what I am trying to get out of what I'm trying to do here. Container fluid. Is that what I'm trying to look at? Container layout. They change it. Container fluid. For a full width container spanning the entire width of the viewport. Container fluid. Alright, so that's looks like that. So let's give it some margin left. So class, iframe. Actually, I think it's padding. I forget. Margin is on the outside. So yeah, let's give it some margin. So ID game, and let's do it from the game. Styles. So I'm gonna get rid of the game. Opponents. Game. We're gonna go margin left, and I don't know. Let's do 25 pixels and see what that looks like right now. That doesn't look too bad. And then let's go margin top, and let's try 50 pixels. 50 pixels. Bam. Failed to comply. Okay, redo it. That's not too bad. That looks not too bad. I'm getting there. I'm getting to where I'm kind of liking this. Alright, so I'm getting there because I'm going to have some information, like I said. So I'm going to have where people can play, and then some information. And so I'm even thinking that I could either give it some more padding and maybe start getting into some design aspects. I don't really know where I'm going with this. I'm just kind of getting at it. But in the meantime, what I am going to do is, since this is on the app component, I am going to, let's take a look. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and start pulling this out and making separate components to kind of make this a better application, to make it more lively and professional, more well organized and more scalable, I guess is the concept. So I'm going to go ahead and make a header, and then I think I'm going to make a sidebar. I think I want my sidebar on the left hand side when I'm looking at it, and then I want the game on the right hand side. And that's a lot of room that I can actually fill in. So I'll have the sidebar, and then I'll have the game. And so let me see if I even turn this container from fluid to just regular container and see what this looks like. See, that's gonna kind of look pretty nice. I think that'll be what I'm looking for. And then alright, so let me take a look. So let me see. What I'm gonna end up doing, like I said, is making a new component. So I'm gonna make a new component. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up my terminal, and I'm gonna press NG, G for generate, and I'm gonna say C for component. I'm gonna say header, because I'm gonna start making a header component, and I don't know what the header component is gonna look like yet, but I'm gonna maybe say arcade up at the top for the time being. And it's also where I'm gonna put my navigation, obviously. And so I'll have a navigation, and let's see, now I gotta remember how to make services. Wow, this is all great for memory off the top of my head, because lots of time it's really hard to for me to memorize things. Sometimes I usually have to look back and forth, so I might have to look at, because I'm gonna have to make some services here, do some injections, and if that's the case, then I might have to look at the documentation, and that's fine. That's fine. Let's see. Get rid of this game by pressing new game is fine. So now where am I at? So I've generated a new header component. So if you go into header component, you'll see header component.ts. you'll see that you got selector app header. So what I'm going to actually go to do is go to app component HTML, and you'll see right here where I got all that stuff. I'm actually going to go ahead and skip ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and break this link for the time being. I'm going to go ahead and go break it by XX. That'll break it right there. I wonder if it'll break the app. It doesn't, but it just makes it go blank. So what am I doing again? I'm gonna go app header is what we came across, right? So now when I come back, I will see where it says header works, and that is just basically what comes included when you go to the header component HTML. They got a little paragraph. That's just what's generated by the Angular system. It's just how it's done. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm actually going to put a div. I'm going to put a div. Get rid of this. I'm going to put a div, and I'm going to call this div sidebar. No, I'm going to call this div, this is the header div. Yeah, so this is the header div. So I'm going to put this a header, and we're going to go ahead and put a class equals, and we're going to call it header. And what else am I going to do? And inside the header, I'm going to have an element, and that element is going to be an H1, and that H1 is going to be main title. Yeah, I think we're going to go main title, right? So let's see, class equals main heading. It's main heading. Class equals main heading. Actually, I think when we're using CSS, I like to do it like this, main heading. And so we'll have that main heading. Inside the main heading, it's going to read arcade. Bam. In fact, I'm going to put HPDS for High Plains Design Studio, arcade, and put a little question, a little exclamation point there. Throw that in there, and let's see what that looks like. Bam, bam. All right. So what I'm gonna do though, is I'm gonna go to app component. I'm gonna take this and put it right here. X that. The content below is only a placeholder and can be replaced. Get rid of you. Put that right there. So now I put the app header up where a header belongs. And now let me go ahead and fix this just for sake. And there it is. So check that out. So that's pretty cool. So the app header needs to be within the container. So X that. Bam, bam, bam. And I clearly broke something home. Delete that and put it right there. And that'll work instead. There it goes. Now they're inside the same container. That's in its own row. I got the header container. Okay, so now what do I need to do? I need to make some routers. So let's see how I'm gonna do the routers. I gotta remember how to do the routers, and I don't. Let me see if I got my notes. Come here, notes. That I'm gonna have to go find it again. I'm kind of remember you got to get a couple of things here, the router module and the route. Where are you, notes? Come on, notes. What is type modules, components, dependency injection, routing, configure the route, add a router upload, add links. So mind you, I've been working with Angular for about a week, going on 2 weeks. Wow, this will be my second week with it. This game is getting annoying. Let's go back to doing that. So I think what I gotta do is I gotta start getting the router. So let's go take a look actually at Angular IO. And let's go take a look at what they got saying about their routes. Features. We're going to take a look at docs, fundamentals, routing and navigation, because this is where I wrote from when I got my notes from anyway, the basics. So this guy's, let's see, enter URLs. So basically you gotta get your href, import, okay, I missed it, router module. Oh, come on. That's exactly, in my app module I gotta import the router module and routes for Angular. So then in my configuration, in that same, I'm gonna make the routes, and look at that, constant app routes, and then I'm gonna make my different routes, which are gonna be my different games. So I'm gonna make different so that means I'm gonna have to make a different component. Well, that's the component is gonna end up taking, I'm gonna grab, so the path is, I'm gonna have the path where I'm gonna have 3 different games: project 1, game 2, game 3, and then I'm gonna make a component, and that component's gonna be the same component. Well, no, I'm gonna make 3 different components for the game, I guess. See, that's what I'm saying. Now I'm lost as how am I going with this? Because I might not need that. I might just need a component for the game, because the components over here, when I route them, I'm gonna need to have path component. Oh, look, here it goes. That's what I'm gonna need. Data. Never mind. That's all I need. I'll just do I'll make one component, several different path with different data, and that different data will be the different routes. I mean the different link, and that'll be great because that's in my module, which is cool. And that'll get that'll read my different links. Cool. And then in my component, I'll come to my component, and that will be injected, I believe. So now I take that for root ng module. So let me see, we do this constant ng module. So let me take a look at what I'll do. App component. Where is it? Where am I at? What am I supposed to be doing? App component, HTML. So ng module is where I'll put it right here. And I don't think, where am I going to put this? Routes. ng module. I thought I'd do it right here. Imports. ng module imports app routes. So then you're doing app routes. You're importing the app routes right here. Enable tracing, debugging purposes only. Okay, so that's how they did it. And for some reason, for root, import the router module in the app module under imports. Add. See, I do have it written down. Router module for root. I got the for root. Yeah, router module for root. Okay, so he did do it. That's how, because this is where I've got my paths and my components, and I just did it a different way. Okay, great. I think I remember what I'm doing now. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna do this number is import this source.app and put it in my app module.ts. So we go to my app module.ts, and these are the components. That's a component, and I'm gonna go ahead and put router module just up there with the modules, router module, router. And so now I'm not gonna put anything right now because I got my header. Now that I got my header component, I'm gonna X out of that, get out of my package, app component.css. I'm gonna leave that open because right here I had the header. Now what I need to do is I need to make a game component, and that game component is gonna change what game is playing right now. You get what I'm saying? So let me see what I can do. So now I'm gonna go back to this, and I'm gonna generate a new component using the Angular system. Bam, bam, bam. So it's ng, G for generate, C for component, and I'm gonna call it game for just game component. And I'm not gonna put it in a row just yet. So I'm gonna delete this, and I'm gonna X this. I'm gonna go to this game component, go to the HTML. You can see where it says that. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to put this, and I'm just going to go ahead and leave that same game. And now, if you remember, I'm going to go to my game component TS. This is where you find out what my selector is, but it defaults to just app in the name of the component, so app game. So I'm going to go copy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to game app component HTML, and after the header, I'm going to go ahead and put it right here after the header. And let's go home, and then end, and then bam, and that's that. So now we got that. Let's go back to this game. You'll see where this is working again, but it's all tiny. So I need to go ahead and take, that's why I kept this open, so I could just go ahead and X that, close that, and then what am I doing? I'm going to the game component CSS, and let's put it right there, and it's right there now. And so then now this is right there, and it looks good again, and we're good to go. New game that, so we can shut up that music. In fact, let me see if I can't change the options and turn the music down to 0. And there you go, background music, and then there you go, and game end. Go to title, and the music is shut off from now on. Great, I did that. I'm a hero. I have stopped the music. I'm done with that. I'm tired of that. So now we've got that going. So now what we've got going is the game component coming out. So now what we need to do is finish up these routers. Let me close out of that. So let's go back to this app module TS where we got these routers. And you know what? I'm not going to do, like, for example, this. When we take a look at this, what this does is this does a first you got to import it. So I did that. So now we have to configure it. And what you do is, see what this did is it makes a constant called app roots, and it calls it a roots, and it gives it an array of these roots. And then over here, when it imports, it calls this router module for root, which you need to do for roots. And there's also for childs, but I'm not doing for childs right now. I'm doing for roots. Because like I said, I've only been doing this for like a week, so I don't understand the for childs entirely. That's when you're making smaller modules. And anyway, so now we're gonna go app roots. Instead of using app roots, I'm just actually gonna put I'm just gonna put an array of objects there with path, component, and data. All right, and so we'll go to providers. What do we do that? We go to, I think I do that in the ng module. Under the imports, I'm going to do router module for root. Router module for root under the imports, under the ng module. Imports. So right here, browser module, comma, what was it? Router module dot for, see, for child, for root, and then what is it? For root, is it a for root? I do a yeah, okay, for root, and then router module, hey, for root, and then we're gonna go ahead and put an array, and let's make this, clean it up. Router module for root, and now I can go ahead and start making some objects. And we're gonna go ahead and, what was it again? If you notice that the roots, it's gonna be a router module app root. So you're gonna check out this roots. I'm gonna go to an open link. And this is should be an interface, right? Sample configuration, path component. So it's path, and we looks like we leave it with the open. So let's go. Path is the first one, and it's a string. It looks like, in this first path, I'm gonna go game 1, and That's all I'm gonna do. And then it's gonna say component. Component is gonna be, and I'm gonna call it. It is the game component. When you generate those games, you know, when you generate the components using that ngg command, it will actually import the components over. So you notice where the game component, the header component got pulled, and there they are called game component, header component. So that's where I'm able to pull this component from. Component is that their game component. So that's the path. And so now data is the thing though. Now data is gonna be, I'm gonna say data, and I'm gonna say what is the data contain? Because the data over here, redirects, empty path, matching strategy, countless, lazy loading. I don't know what that means. I'm a little lazy right now. I'm ready for bed. It's already been up for. Anyway. Data is additional data provided by the component via that. So the data he's got as an app, and so that there it is. So the data is, I'm gonna go ahead and go data URL, data, and I'm gonna put another object and URL, and I'm gonna put a string for right now, an empty string URL, missing white space. Okay, data space. There it is. So that's the first path. Game one, we'll get the cells. So what I need to do is I'm going to go ahead and manually fill in these URLs for the time being, because I find when I'm building things like this by myself without, it's just easier to build small and then, you know, pull out. So you make a little bit, and then from here I'll just copy it and paste it somewhere else where it needs to go as I extrapolate it, I guess is a good word. Extrapolate it into a bigger program, to a bigger thing, or whatever you want to say. I don't know what you want to say. So what the next concept is, I need to actually I'm going to do this 3 times. Copy. So now that I got that, I'm going to change game 1 to game 2, game 2 to game 1 to game 3. But they're all going to have that same component. And now if I go to gamecomponent.html, I'm going to take this number. Now that I think about it, I've only gotten the 1. Because, let's see, this was project 3, if you remember. Laptop Conspirators. Then we're going to go ahead and open project, games, project 3. Let's go to project 2 and go work that. Let's go that route backwards. So now I got this one. Let's get this, make sure I get this, let's see, edit with the plugin list. Make sure I get that plugin going with that core engine. Make sure I got that 816 by 624. Got that. Apply. Okay. And what we're going to do here, we're going to go ahead and deploy it. If you remember how to deploy it on RPG Maker, deployment. Save changes to the game. Yeah, sure, I'll change the save. And we're going to exclude to make it smaller. Web browser. I'm not going to put it. I'm going to go ahead and go to htdocs, RPG games. And yeah, that's the right folder. And let's go. Let's see if it works. And it's deploying. Packages are being created, all that jazz. Okay, then we're gonna go ahead and open project, and we're gonna go to games, and we're gonna go project 1. Same concept. Let's go back to this, make sure this plugin is set on core engine. Core apply, okay. And deployment. Save changes to the game, yep, sure. Web browser, exclude. And that's that same one, and there it is. Now let's see what's going on here. Okay. So now if I go to this here folder, RPG games, in the XAMPP htdocs RPG games, which is Make sure this is the server XAMPP, and this is just where its HD docs go, and I've set up a server here. So I've got project 1, project 2, project 3. And now what I'm going to go ahead and do is hard code this in for the time being. I'm going to go ahead and source this and X that. And we're going to go up to the app module. We're going to go bam, bam, and bam. So now we're going to have the different game paths. And then we're going to go project 1, project 2, project 3. And that should be it for that. So now that that's saved, you'll notice that obviously it's just nothing's really happening. So the next part for the routers, keep in mind, is the app routes array. So let's see, let me see if I can see it. The router outlet. So what we need to do is, given this configuration, when the browser URL for this application becomes heroes, the router matches that URL to the route path heroes and displays the hero list component after a router outlet that you've placed in the host views HTML. So now I got to put this router outlet, and now that I think about it, you got to put the router outlet where it's going to go. So I'm going to go to the app component HTML. So if you remember, there's the app header, and now there's app game. Well, what I've done is I've turned this game component, which is this app game right here, I'm going to get rid of that because I'm going to put this router outlet instead. And so now what I'll do is I got to go make a router link, and that router link I'll direct to game 1, game 2, and game 3, and I'll put that up in the header, and I'll put that as a navigation. I don't even think I need to do it as a navigation service. I'm just going to give the let's see, let me see, yeah, I'll do it in the app header. I'll do it in the header. In fact, I'll just do it in the header. I won't even need to do any kind of service for the time being. So okay, so let's see what's going on. Wow, I've been talking a lot, and I'm not really used to talking so much. But I'm still going. I still got all this to go. What's going on here? I'm getting comments on things that I shouldn't be wanting to get comments on right now at the moment. What are you doing? What are you doing? Okay, let's get back to it. Let's do this number where I do this and I do that, and I'll do this and I'll do that and I'll do that and I'll do this real quick and say yeah. Alright, that worked. So now what I gotta do is, let's go up to this header. What I was going to do is up in this header component HTML. So here's where I've got the heading. It says HPDSRK. So just like any other HTML, I'm going to do a nav. And in this nav, you know what? I'm just going to do the... You know what? I think I have a cool little nav. Let me see where I remember in content. Let's go components. Over here they got navbar or navs. I think even just the navs is what I'm looking for. Navs. So you go to class, you put a ul nav item, nav link, and that's what I'm kind of looking for right here. So looking for ul, and I'm gonna call it nav. So let's go ahead and nav. Let's go ahead and I wonder if I can actually, yeah, no, you just go ahead and do ul, and that class is gonna be class equals nav. So in the UL, we're going to go list 1. I'm just going to list them out for the time being, and I'm not going to use any of their cool little syntax ng directives that they've got. So so it goes list item. So list item. And class is gonna be, what was the class again? Nav item. Nav item. And see, you can even see it. That's cool. So nav items, list item, nav item, and the content. This is, I think, called Zen HTML, which is something that Visual Studio Code um, allows for it. And you notice that I'm just doing kind of like a DOM representation of the elements, and it's going to recreate all of these for me here in a minute. So in the content that I'm putting for the list item, I'm going to put game 1. And so that's the game 1. And then list item, inside of the list item, what goes inside, we're going to put an anchor with it. Okay, so in the anchor though, here's what happens in the anchor. So what we need to do, multiple outlets. So this is Angular routing. So the router outlet, the router links. So now you have routes configured and a place to render them. But now, how do you navigate? Okay, so now I've got the routes configured in the app module. Then I put that router outlet, and that's where the components are actually gonna pop up when I click on the links. And so the router links, now you have routes configured in a place to render them. But how do you navigate? So what you're looking for is this router link, a router link, and then you're putting in / game 1, game 2. You get what I'm saying? Router link active. Heroes router link active. I don't know what that means. I'll have to. I don't remember that. Okay, lets you add a CSS class when the links. Okay, router link active, and it lets you add a CSS class. Okay, cool. So that's for this over here. So check it out. You can have an active link active, and so this is even kind of doing that exact same perfect. So I can almost just, where did I do it? What did I do with it? Is it over here? No, that's the quick start. Here it is. So even router link active, that provides a CSS class that becomes active, and you could put active, and that's the active, and that's going to be exactly what I do. So I'm going to do a router link and equals game 1. Let me see, is that what I had done? Game 1, game 2, game 3. Game 1, game 2, game 3. So great. So this is going to have router link equals, and we're going to have game 1. So this is this first one, if you remember. And this is going to have, and not only is it going to have router link, it's going to have router link active. Is that what it was called? Router link active. And it's also going to have equals, what did I do? Router link active. And then that'll be the exact same thing right there. So that's link 1, so that's great. So that goes a whole number where that gets me a router link. And then inside, so I'm gonna get rid of this number right here because I don't need list item X. Here's where my list item, I put something in the router link. Let's put it right there, game 1. Bam. So now that I've got that list item router link, so that should be, come on, tab it. It's not working. You know what my problem is? It just isn't working. I wonder why not. Well, that sucks. For some reason it didn't work. Damn you. I don't know why it doesn't always work. Maybe it's because it's not working. So sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't work for me. List item. And we're going to go ahead and put an anchor item. And I'm going to get rid of href. Router link equals, and what does the router link equal? Game 1. Game 1. And then we're also going to router link active, if you remember, equals active. And then in the link, we're going to put game 1. Game 1. And let's see what that looks like already. You can see game 1. Cool. Cool. Alright, and let's keep going more. What else do I got? So let's go ahead and do this. And the link should also have class equals nav link. Right? Is that what it is? Bootstrap tells me nav link, nav link. Nav item. Okay, nav item and nav link. So that's my bad. The link item, nav item. So I also need to do over here, I need to do a class equals nav link. There it goes. That looks proper. And I'm gonna suck it all up like a princess. So now I got that UL, and I'm gonna go ahead and do this number and copy that. Copy and there you go. Nav item game 1, and let's go ahead and put game 2. Game 3 active, but we're also gonna go game 1, game 2, game 3. So now that's gonna work, but game 1, game 2, game 3, nothing's really popping up because that is not getting the information yet. So now what is happening? So now the game component is the CSS. So this should be sending the data. You notice the URLs. I got 3 different URLs to get those 3 different games. So now I got to go to app component, and when I get this, you'll see where it says app title app. No, that's not right. So I need to go to, where's my game component? Game component. Game component. So I get this game, show fixes. What kind of fixes? Extract function into game component. I don't want to do that. I don't know what you mean by that. So let's see what it has to tell me, because that component list routes, let's see, lazy loading, the router state activated URL and observable, blah blah. Router events, navigation start, an event triggered summary, router routes. I don't remember how to get the data. I don't think I've done it this way to get data, because this time I'm using one component for 3 different routes, which I have not done in the past, which is something clear. Normally I've done 1 route, 1 path. This is 3 different. So define routes. This is telling me the basics, router links. I'm sure I could probably figure out importing the router library, routing module. Do you need a routing module? Heroes function, import order matters, route definition with patterns. Where do I get displaying module routes, milestone, route guards, data, receive, resolve, prefetching component data. Fetch data before navigating. So I have not gotten this far into this concept now. So what I'm looking for is some way to get the data, prefetching component data. That's not what I'm looking for. It doesn't look like. Let's go ahead and Google search it. So let's go ahead and what am I looking for? Angular for data in router module for route. Is it for route? For route. The basics router configuration, because I know it has data here. Now I don't know where where does that data go? The data property in the 3rd route is a place to store arbitrary data associated with this specific route. The data property is accessible within each activated route. Use it to store items such as page titles, breadcrumb text, and other read-only static data. You'll use the resolve guard to retrieve dynamic data later in the guide. The empty path, so I am right, so it was kind of resolve guard. The empty path in the fourth route represents the default path. So let's go to this whole resolve. So that was, you'll use the resolve guard. So I haven't used the resolve guard before. I don't even know what that means. This is all brand new to me. I'm just deciphering it, people. Resolve prefetching component data. In the hero detail in Crysis, the app waited until the route was activated to fetch the respective hero. This worked well, but there's a better way. If you're using a real-world API, which I don't have an API right now, but it's close enough because I am pulling from a different server. It's preferable to prefetch data from the server so it's ready the moment the route is activated. This also allows you to handle errors before routing the component. You need a resolver. In the summary, we want to delay rendering the routed component until all necessary data have been fetched. You need a resolver. Okay, great. That's what I'm looking for. So that way it can render the game before it even resolves the thing. So at the moment, the Crysis detail retrieves the selected Crysis. If it's not found, it navigates back to the Crysis. The experience might be create the Crysis detail resolver. Okay, so we're going to need to create a resolver service within the Crysis Center feature area. So let's see, it creates some sort of import, and then it imports the service. So this is the service that it creates. Crysis detail, and it creates some sort of operator map, a take, an injectable, an observable, a router resolve, a router state snapshot, activate router. So wow, so it's taking quite a bit of stuff. So in here it's taking its it implements the resolve. Okay, because it's gonna take this, where's it gonna take the resolve? Implements resolve, export class. Wow, resolve implements resolve Crysis. So you take the Crysis service, import Crysis. So this is a whole new class, Crysis detail resolver. Why is that not the same? Take the relevant parts of the Crysis retrieval logic in the Crysis detail component ng on init and move them to the Crysis detail resolvers. So what am I looking at? So here's the Crysis Center routing module. So they took the from import Crysis date from, and again that service, and you're providing that. So no longer fetch the Crysis, update the Crysis detail component to get the Crysis. So wow, what comes next? The router's resolve interface is optional. The Crysis detail resolve doesn't inherit from a base class. Cool. So I am lost. I'm stuck here. And it is already again lunchtime, or getting close to. I ate last time I was on here. It was like 11. Now it's already gonna be 3:30. It's almost 4 o'clock. It's already eating time again, people. Thank God. Thank Jesus. Time to eat. And I don't say that enough, apparently. Because I got to figure out what I'm going to do with this data. Because it looks like I just get this data. And then Crysis, data, Crysis. And that's the data.crysis. And that's where I need this. I'll need the URL names. So then that I could get the URL name. And then over here, I'll bind in the component. In the component HTML, I'll bind this source to what's going on over here in the component. So I need to figure out how to observe on that. So here it is, the component, Crysis detail. You're subscribing this route. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna take my notes. I'm gonna decipher this a little bit. I gotta read this a few times before I figure it out. I'll read it, I'll decipher it, and I'll figure it out, and I'll come back and do it again. All right, bye.